So Prince Harry has implicated Rebecca English in his lawsuit testimony. And if you're like most of you in the comments, you're asking the same question. Do we believe Harry or do we believe Rebecca? Well, there's no doubt in my mind. But I know some of you felt the last video didn't give you the specifics. You wanted the actual claims, the receipts, the details that let you form your own conclusions. Fair enough. Today, we fix that. Here's what Harry actually alleged in his court filings. Here's why those allegations face serious legal obstacles. And here's why Rebecca English has absolutely nothing to worry about. Let's start with the lawsuit itself, because there's been so much litigation flying around that even dedicated royal watchers can lose track of which case involves which newspaper. In October 2022, Prince Harry joined a group of high-profile claimants, including Sir Elton John, Baroness Doreen Lawrence, actress Elizabeth Hurley, and several others, in filing suit against Associated Newspapers Limited. That's the publisher of the Daily Mail, Mail on Sunday, and Mail Online. Not Mirror Group. Harry already sued them separately. Not News Group newspapers. That was a different case entirely. This is Harry versus the Daily Mail, and Rebecca English is the Daily Mail's royal editor. The lawsuit alleges what the legal filings describe as grave and repugnant invasions of privacy through unlawful information gathering. The claimants accuse ANL of commissioning private investigators to surveil them, intercepting voicemails, and employing other illegal methods to obtain information that appeared in published articles. Among the journalists named in the particulars of claim were Katie Nicholl and Rebecca English, who, according to court filings, wrote most of the articles Harry identified as problematic. The accusations against English center particularly on her coverage of Harry's relationship with his then-girlfriend, Chelsea Davy, with specific focus on articles published in December 2007 and the years that followed. December 2007. Let that date settle in your mind. Harry's legal team named a specific private investigator, a man called Bear, and alleged that English used illegally obtained information from this investigator in her reporting. That's the accusation. That's what Harry has put in his court filings. Articles from December 2007. A lawsuit filed in October 2022. 15 years of complete silence in between. And that silence isn't just damning from a common sense perspective. It's potentially fatal to Harry's entire case. This brings us to the single most important legal concept in this lawsuit, the limitation period. In English law, there are time limits on when you can bring certain claims. You can't wait decades and then suddenly decide to sue. The law requires timely action. For most civil claims, you have 6 years from when the alleged wrongdoing occurred, or from when you reasonably should have discovered it. Harry's claims about Rebecca English's December 2007 reporting weren't filed until October 2022. That's 15 years, more than double the standard limitation period. And Associated Newspapers' legal team has been hammering this point in every preliminary hearing. The limitation defense essentially argues this: even if everything Harry claims were true, which ANL categorically denies, he waited far too long to bring the claim. The time to sue over December 2007 articles was December 2013 at the latest, not October 2022. Now, Harry's lawyers have arguments for why the limitation period shouldn't apply. They'll claim he didn't know about the alleged illegal methods until recently. They'll argue that the information only came to light through other legal proceedings and disclosures. They'll try to establish that the clock should start from when he discovered the wrongdoing, not when it allegedly occurred. But here's where Harry's own behavior undermines his legal position. If Harry truly believed, even suspected, that Rebecca English was using illegally obtained information to report on him, there were countless opportunities over 15 years to raise concerns. He was a working royal with access to lawyers, palace advisors, and press secretaries whose job included managing media relations. He had resources. He had platforms. He had every opportunity to complain. He didn't. Instead, he maintained what by all accounts was a professional working relationship with the very journalist he now accuses of criminal conduct. And that brings us to who Rebecca English actually is, because understanding her career is essential to understanding why Harry's accusations don't hold water. Rebecca English joined the Daily Mail in the early 2000s and worked her way up through the ranks over more than 2 decades. 21 years of covering the British royal family. That's not a number I'm throwing around casually. It's the documented span of a career that predates Harry's emergence as an adult public figure. Think about what 21 years of royal journalism actually means. When English started at the Daily Mail, Queen Elizabeth II was still in robust health and commanding the royal stage. Prince Charles was decades away from ascending to the throne. William was a university student, not a married father of 3. Harry was a teenager, not yet the scandal-prone prince whose Vegas escapades and Nazi costume would make global headlines. English watched all of it unfold, reported on all of it, built relationships with palace press offices across 3 different households, cultivated sources among courtiers, protection officers, and the extended network of people who orbit the royal family. She traveled on official tours, not as a paparazzo hiding in bushes, but as an accredited correspondent invited by the palace itself. She accompanied Queen Elizabeth II on state visits during the late monarch's final years of travel. She's covered King Charles III and Queen Camilla around the world since Charles assumed the throne. She documented William and Catherine's entire journey, from early courtship, through wedding, through parenthood, establishing herself as one of the most trusted reporters on the future king's household. This is the professional background of the woman Harry accuses of needing a private investigator called Bear to report on his love life. Consider that for a moment. A journalist with 21 years of accumulated sources, palace access, and institutional relationships. A reporter who has traveled on the royal plane, attended official briefings, and built the kind of trust that makes sources willing to share information on background. Someone with more contacts in royal circles than most people have contacts in their phone. And Harry's theory is that she needed to pay a private investigator for information about his girlfriend in 2007? The absurdity becomes even more apparent when you understand how the royal rota system works. The rota is the arrangement that gives accredited journalists access to royal events. It's been operating for decades. A small group of trusted correspondents, representing major British media outlets, get pooled access to tours, engagements, and official occasions. They share footage and quotes with other outlets according to established protocols. In exchange, they agree to certain restrictions and maintain the professional relationships that keep the system functioning. Rebecca English has been part of this system for her entire career at the Daily Mail. She's one of the journalists the palace trusts enough to bring inside the velvet rope. She's been in receiving lines, at state banquets, on tarmacs greeting royals as they step off planes. This isn't someone operating from the shadows. This is someone working within an officially sanctioned system that gives her access other reporters don't have. When she wrote about Harry and Chelsea Davy in December 2007, she was writing as a reporter who had built years of relationships within royal circles. Friends of Harry talk to journalists. That's what happens when you're a prince whose social life generates public interest. Friends of Chelsea talk to journalists. That's what happens when you're dating someone famous. Courtiers observed dynamics and shared observations with reporters they trusted. None of this requires illegal surveillance. All of it is standard journalism practiced by royal correspondents across every major British media outlet. Harry's argument essentially boils down to this. The coverage was too detailed, too accurate, too revealing to have come from legitimate sources. Therefore, it must have been obtained illegally. But that argument assumes good journalism can only come from bad methods. It assumes a reporter with 21 years of experience couldn't possibly know things through legitimate means. It assumes Rebecca English is lying about how she does her job, and it ignores the far more obvious explanation. She's been doing this job for 2 decades, she's very good at it, and her sources talk to her because they trust her. The preliminary hearings in this case were ongoing throughout 2023 and 2024. Mr. Justice Nicklin presided over multiple sessions addressing procedural matters, evidentiary questions, and the legal framework for the trial. In November 2023, the judge issued a significant ruling addressing key preliminary issues, establishing parameters for what would need to be proven, and setting the roadmap toward resolution. A subsequent hearing in November 2024 addressed cost budgets, with Mr. Justice Nicklin and Senior Master Cook ruling on the financial parameters for the litigation. That ruling came down in late January 2025, establishing how much each side can spend and imposing some financial discipline on proceedings that have already consumed years of court time. Throughout these preliminary stages, Associated Newspapers has maintained a fundamentally different posture than the other newspaper groups Harry has sued. This distinction matters enormously, so let me explain it clearly. Harry's lawsuit against Mirror Group newspapers resulted in a significant victory. In June 2023, he became the first senior member of the British royal family to testify in court since the late 19th century. Mr. Justice Fancourt ruled that MGN had engaged in phone hacking on what the judge described as an industrial scale. Harry was vindicated in that case. He was awarded damages plus costs. That outcome was real, documented, and established that one newspaper group had engaged in unlawful conduct, one genuine win, against Mirror Group, not the Daily Mail. His lawsuit against News Group newspapers, Rupert Murdoch's operation, publisher of The Sun and the now-defunct News of the World, followed a different path. By late 2024, that case appeared headed for trial in January 2025. Everything was set for what promised to be a dramatic courtroom confrontation. And then, NGN offered a settlement. According to reports from January 22, 2025, the settlement involved an 8-figure sum. NGN issued what was described as a full apology, acknowledging that Harry had been subjected to unlawful information gathering. Harry accepted the deal. His supporters call that vindication. Another win against the evil tabloids. But here's what they won't tell you. The settlement meant Harry never had to face cross-examination in that case. His allegations were accepted through negotiation, not tested through adversarial litigation. He avoided the rigorous scrutiny that a hostile barrister provides, the kind of questioning that exposes inconsistencies, challenges memories, forces witnesses to defend their claims under pressure. NGN paid to make the problem go away. That's not the same as Harry proving his specific allegations were accurate in open court. We'll never know whether his claims against News Group would have survived trial because there wasn't one. Now look at Associated Newspapers. A&L hasn't settled. A&L hasn't offered an apology. A&L hasn't written a check to make Harry disappear. A&L is fighting. The publisher has categorically denied all allegations of unlawful information gathering. Anthony White KC, the barrister representing A&L, has characterized Harry's claims as wild and unfounded in submissions to the court. When a defendant settles, you don't know whether they're admitting fault or simply calculating that settlement costs less than trial. When a defendant goes to trial and defends vigorously, something different is happening. They're betting they can win. They're confident their journalists operated within legal bounds. They're willing to stake their reputation on that confidence. A&L is making that bet, and the way they're defending Rebecca English tells you everything about how strong they believe their position to be. Through the publisher's legal team, English has stated clearly and unequivocally that she strongly denies that she ever used Mr. Bear for unlawful information gathering or employed any other illegal methods in her journalism. Not a hedge, not a qualified denial, not "I don't recall" or "not to my knowledge." A flat, categorical rejection. The defense strategy has centered on demonstrating that the information in English's articles could be explained entirely through conventional reporting methods. The cultivation of sources over 21 years, access to palace press offices, relationships with courtiers and friends who spoke on and off the record, the extensive network that develops when you cover the same institution for more than 2 decades. And then there's the evidence that cuts directly against Harry's entire narrative. In January 2020, just months before Harry announced he was stepping back as a senior royal and relocating to California, Rebecca English wrote an article for the Daily Mail describing her 15 years of traveling with the prince around the world. She offered what she characterized as touching insight into his personality. She praised his generosity, his warmth, his emotional intelligence. She recalled moments of genuine human connection, the kind of anecdotes that only emerge from years of close observation and professional access. 15 years of covering him. An article praising his emotional intelligence. Written by the same journalist Harry now accuses of committing crimes against him. If Harry truly believed Rebecca English was using illegal methods to report on him, why did he maintain a cordial professional relationship with her for 15 years? Why did his press office continue engaging with her? Why was there no complaint, no formal objection, no legal letter, nothing, until after he left royal life and made litigation his full-time occupation? The defense has made this point forcefully, and Harry doesn't have a good answer. His credibility problems extend far beyond the timing questions, though. Look at the pattern of his post-royal life. This is a man who has made suing the British press his primary public-facing activity since relocating to California. Multiple lawsuits against multiple newspaper groups, years consumed by court proceedings, millions in legal fees, all while simultaneously complaining that the press pays too much attention to him. The memoir, Spare, published in January 2023 and ghostwritten by J.R. Moringer, provided hundreds of pages documenting Harry's grievances. It portrayed the British press as a mortal enemy. It framed every negative story as evidence of conspiracy. It built a narrative of victimhood that Harry has since carried into courtroom after courtroom. Critics have pointed to claims in the book that don't align with other documented evidence. Supporters call his candor proof of honesty. But what no one disputes is that Harry has constructed an identity around his media battles. He's the prince who sues, the royal who litigates, the man who left his family and his country to wage legal warfare against journalists. When someone with that much invested in a particular narrative makes specific accusations against individual journalists, you have to consider whether those accusations reflect genuine wrongdoing or retrospective grievance construction. You have to ask whether a man consumed by vendetta can be trusted to accurately characterize the conduct of people he's decided are his enemies. The audience in the comments has already reached their verdict on that question. They've been watching this unfold for years. They've seen the contradictions, the shifted narratives, the selective memory that always casts Harry as victim and everyone else as villain. I don't believe a word coming out of Harry's mouth. That's not my assessment. That's a direct quote from one of you. And based on the pattern of Harry's conduct, it's a reasonable position to hold. Rebecca English, meanwhile, has continued doing her job throughout all of this. She's covered royal tours while Harry sued her publisher. She's reported on palace announcements while legal teams exchanged documents. She's maintained the professional relationships that make royal journalism possible, while her name appeared in court filings alleging criminal conduct. She hasn't retreated from her position. She hasn't hedged her denials. She hasn't changed her story or offered carefully lawyered language designed to leave wiggle room. She simply denied the accusations and trusted that the legal process will vindicate her. Everything about A&L's confident defense, their refusal to settle, their aggressive preliminary arguments, Their willingness to fight when other publishers folded suggests that trust is well placed. The trial began in January 2026 before Mr. Justice Nicklin in the High Court of Justice. Harry appeared in the courtroom on the first day of proceedings. When he took the witness stand, he became visibly emotional at several points. The cross-examination conducted by Anthony White KC probed his claims with prosecutorial precision. Harry's account of systematic wrongdoing is being tested against A&L's insistence that its journalists operated within legal bounds. The documentary evidence, the testimony, and the legal arguments are all factoring into what will become the judge's decision. But the limitation defense looms over everything, even if Harry somehow overcomes the credibility problems. Even if he manages to explain why he waited 15 years to complain. Even if he convinces the court that December 2007 articles caused him genuine harm, he still has to explain why he didn't sue within the limitation period. He still has to justify the delay. He still has to overcome a legal doctrine that exists precisely to prevent people from dredging up ancient grievances decades after the fact. There's a reason limitation periods exist. Witnesses forget. Documents disappear. Memories fade. It becomes increasingly difficult to mount a defense against allegations from the distant past. The law recognizes this unfairness and requires timely action. Harry didn't take timely action. He waited 15 years, and that delay may doom his case, regardless of what happens in the courtroom. Rebecca English herself has now faced the prospect of defending her professional integrity against accusations from a former subject who once praised her coverage of him. She does so, backed by a publisher that refused to settle, that characterized the claims as wild and unfounded, that chose to fight rather than write a check. She does so with 21 years of professional reputation built before any of this litigation began. The trial continues before Mr. Justice Nicklin. But beyond the immediate legal questions lies something broader that the audience keeps asking. When does this end? When will someone put their foot down on Harry's lawsuit obsession? When will the courts, or simple exhaustion, or the running out of newspapers to sue, bring an end to this campaign? This case will eventually conclude. A verdict will be rendered. But the underlying conflict between Harry and the British press shows no sign of resolution. Harry has made this fight his identity. Identities like that don't get abandoned easily. Even if he loses this case, and the evidence strongly suggests he should lose this case, the pattern will likely continue. Another grievance, another lawsuit, another opportunity to play the victim while spending millions on legal fees. For those of us who have watched his transformation from working royal to professional litigant, the assessment is clear. This isn't a man seeking accountability. This is a man seeking revenge. This is a man stuck in the past, unable to move on from grievances real and imagined, using the legal system to wage a campaign against everyone he blames for his unhappiness. Rebecca English is collateral damage in that campaign, a convenient target, a name to add to court filings, a journalist who had the misfortune of covering Harry during his Chelsea Davy years, and is now being accused of crimes she categorically denies committing. The evidence stacks up exactly as you'd expect. A serial litigant making accusations based on articles published 15 years before he filed suit. A limitation defense that could end the case in A&L's favor. A publisher willing to fight rather than settle. A journalist with 21 years of credibility who has denied everything clearly and categorically. Rebecca English keeps reporting. The Daily Mail keeps publishing. The Royal Press Corps keeps doing its job. Harry keeps suing. Stuck in the past, unable to move on. Consumed by grievances that the law may not even allow him to pursue. The verdict on his credibility was rendered long ago by the audience watching his every move. The High Court will render its own verdict on the legal merits when the trial concludes. When it does, Rebecca English will still be doing her job, still traveling with the royals, still building on 21 years of professional reputation. And Harry will be looking for the next lawsuit to file. Subscribe for more stories like this.